The Battle of Crécy, fought on August 26, 1346 CE, marked a pivotal event in the Hundred Years' War between England and France. Edward III of England aimed to expand his territories in France, leveraging his claim to the French throne through his mother Isabella of France. This claim led to a conflict with King Philip VI of France, initiating the long-lasting Hundred Years' War. Edward III and his son Edward the Black Prince led a professional English army to a remarkable victory against a much larger French force. The battle's outcome was attributed to several factors, including tactical decisions, disciplined troops, the effective use of the longbow, and the mismanagement of the French leadership under King Philip VI. The English longbow, a highly potent weapon, played a pivotal role in the battle's outcome. This weapon was unmatched on the medieval battlefield and contributed significantly to England's success. Before Crécy, Edward III had already demonstrated English military prowess. In 1340 CE, he destroyed a French fleet at the Battle of Sluys. In 1345 CE, the Earl of Derby recaptured Gascony for the English crown, showcasing their strategic achievements in the early stages of the war. Edward's son, the Black Prince, employed a strategy known as the chevauchée in preparation for a French campaign. This strategy involved burning French towns and villages along the Seine Valley. The goals were multifaceted: to instill fear, provide sustenance for the invading army, acquire loot and ransom, and weaken the enemy's economic and military capabilities. The chevauchée also aimed to provoke King Philip into confronting the English army in the field. The destruction of the economic base and the consistent threat of invasion prompted Philip VI to engage, setting the stage for the Battle of Crécy. The Battle of Crécy stands as a defining moment in the early stages of the Hundred Years' War, showcasing England's military skill and the strategic complexity of medieval warfare. During the Battle of Crécy, both the English and French armies had heavy cavalry, infantry, and archers. However, it was the English longbow that played a crucial role and turned the tide of battle. These longbows were approximately 1.5 to 1.8 meters, 5 to 6 feet, long and typically made from yew wood, strung with hemp. The arrows they fired, about 83 centimeters, 33 inches, in length and crafted from ash and oak, had the ability to penetrate armor. A skilled archer could shoot up to 15 arrows per minute, demonstrating the rapid and deadly nature of the longbow. Additionally, the English forces included mounted archers who could swiftly engage enemies on the move or respond to changing battlefield situations. While the French also had some archers, their reliance was more on crossbowmen due to the crossbow's easier usage that required less training. Notably, a significant portion of the French army consisted of Genoese crossbowmen. However, the crossbow had a significantly slower firing rate compared to the longbow, with roughly 1 crossbow bolt being fired for every 5 arrows from a longbow in terms of speed. In terms of infantry, men-at-arms were equipped with plate armor or reinforced cloth and leather combined with metal strips. This provided better protection against attacks. Common infantry, typically held in reserve until the cavalry engagement, had minimal or no armor and wielded various weapons such as pikes, lances, axes, and adapted farming tools. The English army's disciplined approach was a key factor in their success. They were able to repel as many as 15 waves of French cavalry attacks while maintaining their defensive formation. This cohesion prevented any break in their lines, contributing to their overall victory. Edward's army also introduced crude cannons, marking the first use of cannons on French soil. However, due to the technological limitations of the time, the impact of these cannons was minimal. Their effectiveness was hindered by factors such as poor firing angles and the inability to fire downhill. The Battle of Crécy showcased the significance of strategic weaponry and disciplined troops in medieval warfare. The English longbow's rapid firing rate and piercing power played a crucial role in securing victory on the battlefield. On August 26, 1346 CE, the opposing English and French armies engaged in a significant battle near Crécy-en-Ponthieu, a small town located south of Calais. Prior to this main confrontation, there had been some smaller skirmishes along the way. King Edward III of England led his army in person, having landed near Cherbourg on July 12. His forces joined with those led by his son, Edward the Black Prince. In recognition of the successful raids carried out by the prince, King Edward knighted him. The English army continued its campaign, capturing Caen on July 26, and then turned north to reach the vicinity of Crécy. On the French side, King Philip VI of France gathered his forces and led them from Abbeville, a nearby town. While the exact numbers remain disputed among historians, there is general agreement that the French army significantly outnumbered the English, with estimates ranging from around 25,000 French troops against approximately 12,000 to 15,000 English soldiers. Facing this numerical disadvantage, King Edward employed a strategic defensive position on a small elevated terrain overlooking the River Mire. His forces were divided into 3 divisions, with natural obstacles protecting their flanks, a forest and marshy ground on one side, and the village of Wadicourt on the other. Additionally, the English king had holes dug in front of his lines, which would complicate the enemy cavalry's advance. Before the battle commenced, King Edward delivered an inspiring speech to his troops, as recorded by the chronicler Jean Froissart. The speech encouraged his soldiers to fight valiantly and protect their honor, bolstering their spirits for the impending conflict. The battle began with a French cavalry charge. However, this initial assault became chaotic due to a miscommunication. The order to advance was given but then retracted as it became apparent that the charging troops would be heading directly into the setting sun. Some French cavalry continued to charge, while others retreated. The Genoese crossbowmen in the French ranks advanced with the sound of drums and trumpets, but they quickly faltered as they found themselves exposed to the English archers. In response, King Philip ordered his own cavalry to charge, creating further confusion. The French cavalry attacked in successive waves, but the English and Welsh archers, potentially positioned on the flanks of the English men-at-arms, inflicted severe damage. This initial phase of the Battle of Crécy showcased the impact of strategic positioning and the devastating power of the English longbow in the face of numerical odds. Edward's formation at Crécy closely mirrored the one he had successfully employed at Halidon Hill against the Scots in 1333 CE. The French knights found themselves dismounted from their horses and vulnerable to the onslaught of English arrows, which came from multiple angles. The power and accuracy of the English longbow proved insurmountable for the French, who struggled to counter its range. Edward's army, battle-hardened from previous conflicts in Scotland and Wales, maintained superior discipline and experience throughout the engagement. The French cavalry launched as many as 15 waves of attacks against the English forces. However, these attacks were consistently repelled, showcasing the effectiveness of the English defensive formation. The English soldiers adhered to their disciplined positions, avoiding reckless pursuits of retreating French cavalry that would have left them exposed to the numerically superior French infantry. In contrast, the French knights and their allies, while experienced, were let down by the undisciplined behavior of Philip's infantry, mainly composed of poorly trained militia. Even the knights themselves displayed a lack of coordination and discipline. In response, Edward adapted his strategy by having his own knights dismount and advance in tight ranks, supported by pikemen and a vanguard of archers. At just 16 years old, Prince Edward led the English army's right wing alongside Sir Godfrey Harcourt. During the battle, there was a critical moment when the French seemed poised to overwhelm the prince's troops. Sir Godfrey urgently called for reinforcements. According to the chronicler Jean Froissart, King Edward, who was observing the battle from a vantage point near a windmill, simply stated that if his son could extricate himself from the situation, he would earn his knighthood. Eventually, the prince was saved by his standard-bearer Richard Fitzsimon, and the French assault was repelled. The sheer number of French nobility casualties and the loss of leadership effectively rendered the superior French infantry numbers irrelevant. The result became evident by nightfall. King Edward's forces emerged victorious with approximately 300 casualties compared to the staggering 14,000 fallen French troops. The French suffered heavy losses as they had raised the oriflamme, a battle standard, signaling no quarter to be given. Traditionally, around 1,542 French knights were said to have perished, although some historians estimate the number to be higher, potentially reaching 4,000. Prominent figures among France's nobility and its allies, including King John of Bohemia, the King of Majorca, the Count of Blois, and Louis of Nevers, the Count of Flanders, were among the casualties. King Philip, unseated from his horse twice, narrowly escaped the disastrous defeat. In the aftermath of the battle, according to legend, Prince Edward adopted the emblem and motto of the fallen King of Bohemia, an ostrich feather and Ick Dean, meaning I serve. Over time, these feathers evolved to 3, becoming the symbol of the Prince of Wales, a legacy that continues today. The triumph at Crécy became a legendary event, elevating the most distinguished knights who had fought in the battle to the prestigious Order of the Garter, an exclusive club established by Edward III around 1348 CE to honor medieval chivalry. This victory also marked a significant turning point for England, as it demonstrated that the country was no longer in the shadow of France, a position it had held since the Norman conquest of England by William the Conqueror in 1066 CE. Another lasting commemoration of the battle is found in the Crécy window of Gloucester Cathedral. This stained glass window portrays noble figures involved in the battle and displays their coats of arms. On a different battlefield, in July 1347 CE, an English army achieved another victory by capturing Calais after a prolonged siege. In October 1346 CE, David II of Scotland, an ally of Philip VI, invaded England. However, the Scottish forces were defeated by an English army at the Battle of Neville's Cross on the 17th of October 1346 CE. David II was captured, further solidifying Edward III's reputation. A decade later, an even greater triumph would unfold at the Battle of Poitiers in September 1356 CE, where the French were defeated once again, and this time the King of France himself was captured. Following a period of relative peace starting in 1360 CE, the Hundred Years' War continued as Charles V of France, also known as Charles the Wise, demonstrated greater leadership than his predecessors and began to regain English-held territories. By 1375 CE, the English crown only retained Calais and a small portion of Gascony in France. During the reign of Richard II of England, from 1377 to 1399 CE, the two nations experienced relative tranquility. However, under Henry V of England, from 1413 to 1422 CE, the conflict flared up once more, culminating in the monumental English victory at the Battle of Agincourt in October 1415 CE. Henry's success was so significant that he was even nominated as the heir to the French king, Charles VI of France. However, Henry V passed away before assuming that role. The emergence of Joan of Arc in 1429 CE marked a turning point in favor of France. With her leadership, King Charles VII of France took the initiative, and the tide of the war shifted. The weak rule of Henry VI of England, from 1422 to 1461 CE and again in 1470 to 1471 CE, concluded with a final English defeat. By the end of the wars in 1453 CE, England had lost all of its French territories except Calais.